Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today doing a EX0 Festival Master Duel Monarch deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is a really awesome deck to play during the EX0 Festival on Master Duel. Because this deck is my go-to deck to play anytime I want to play a deck that doesn't have an extra deck, and I want to lock down the opponent because this deck is extremely powerful to be able to play and just a really good deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like in your name script every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Erebus, the Underworld Monarch. This card is a great 3-of in the deck that has a super powerful effect that you can tribute summon this card by tributing 1 tribute summon monster. And if this card is tribute summoned, then you can send 2 Monarch spells or trap cards with different names from your hand or deck to the graveyard. And if you do, shuffle 1 card from your opponent's hand at random, graveyard, or their side of the field into the deck, which is really a powerful effect because sending cards like your copies of Pantheism or your copies of your Prime Monarch to the graveyard is going to give you some really good graveyard setup, which is really good by just tribute summoning this card out to your field while also getting rid of a card that your opponent has. This card also has a really powerful second effect that once per turn during either player's main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can discard a Monarch spell or trap card and then target a monster in your graveyard with 2400 or more attack and 1000 defense and add that card to your hand, which is a really good effect to be able to grab your other monarchs back out of the graveyard. We then play 3 copies of Aether the Heavenly Monarch. This card is a great 3-of in the deck. It helps you kind of swarm the field with the ability similar to your copy of Erebus that you can tribute summon this card by tributing 1 tribute summon monster. And if this card is tribute summoned, you can send 2 Monarch spell or trap cards with different names from your hand or deck to the graveyard. And if you do, special summon out a monster with 2400 more attack from your 1000 defense from your deck, but return it to your hand during the end phase, which is a super good effect to be able to summon out an additional Monarch to your side of the field, which is just a really good effect, and then add it to your hand during the end phase, which just gives you basically a search and a special summon, which is really good. It also has an ability that basically during your opponent's main phase, if this card is in your hand, you can banish a Monarch spell or trap card from your graveyard, and immediately as this card resolves, tribute summon this card, and it is a quick effect, which is a really good effect to just get this card onto your side of the field and get an additional monster on your field off this card's first effect. We then play 2 copies of Vanity's Fiend. Vanity's Fiend is a really powerful, very simple monster that has the ability it cannot be special summoned, but neither player can special summon monsters. Very simple effect, but super effective with this deck because all we're going to be doing pretty much is going to be normal summoning, which is really awesome. And once you get this card out on your side of the field, it's going to help you lock down the opponent. We then play a single copy of Majesty's Fiend. Majesty's Fiend is a really good card because it has the ability that it cannot be special summoned and monster effects cannot be activated anywhere, which is a really good effect to be able to have on this card because this card actually has 1000 defense and 2400 attack, so it actually goes with the Monarch stats, unlike your copies of Vanity's Fiend, which is why I'm playing Vanity's Fiend at 2, and your copy of Majesty's Fiend at 1 because this card is actually searchable. We then play a single copy of Karaz the Light Monarch. Karaz is a really good 1-of in the deck because this card has the ability that when this card is normal or special summon, you can target up to 2 cards on the field and destroy those targets. Then if you do, each player draws a card for each card that they control that was destroyed by this card's effect, but this card cannot attack during the turn it's normal or special summon. This card is a great card to have in the deck because it can pop actually 2 of your own cards to give you a draw 2, or pop 2 cards on your opponent's side of the field to get rid of cards that you really don't want your opponent to have on the field. We then play 2 copies of the Heavenly Squire. I feel like 2 is the perfect number in this deck because this card has a really good effect that if this card is normal or special summon, then you can special summon out 1 monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense from your deck in defense position except another copy of this card, and also you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, then you can target one of your banished Monarch spells or trap cards and add it back to your hand, which is a insanely powerful effect to get cards like your copy of your Pantheism back to your hand. We then play 2 copies of the Underworld Squire. Underworld Squire is a really good 2-of because this card gives you an additional normal summon, because if this card is normal or special summon during your main phase this turn, you can tribute summon 1 monster in addition to your normal summoner set, and you can only gain this effect once per turn, and you can banish this card from your graveyard and then target 1 monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense in your graveyard, except another copy of this card, and special summon it in defense position, but it locks you out of the extra deck for the rest of the turn, which is totally fine because we're not playing an extra deck anyways. We then play a single copy of Mithra, the Thunder Vassal. Thunder Vassal is a good one of the deck because it's just an additional vassal that you can summon to your side of the field and give you additional summons, so this card is a definite one of in this build. We're then playing 2 copies of Proof. Proof is a good card in my opinion in this deck because if you control no special summon monsters, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and also you can't special summon other monsters for the rest of the turn, and you only affect this card once per turn, and if this card is normal or special summon, you mean that this card resolves, tribute summon 1 monster, which helps in the deck to get an additional Monarch on your side of the field. We then play a single copy of a Pendulum Monster. This card is basically an upstart goblin for the deck. It's a great one of, because if you have no cards in your extra deck except this card, you can destroy this card and then draw a card, which is the main effect that you're going to be using on this card all the time, and it's just a really good card overall to play in this deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get in the spell. The other reason I'm playing this card as a 1-of, by the way, is because it's currently limited to 1 during the EX0 festival. So that's it for the monsters. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Rhoda. Rhoda's just really good to search your copy of the Heavenly Squire directly from your deck to your hand. We'll play a single copy of Foolish Burial to get the exact monster we need in the graveyard when we need it. 1 copy of 1-for-1 to summon out our copy of the Heavenly Squire from our deck to our side of the field. 1 copy of Upstart Goblin to make the deck a little bit thinner when you draw this card, which is really, really good. 2 copies of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is really good so that we don't get hand trapped while we're playing with this deck, which is just really helpful to have because you don't want to break with this build. We then play a single copy of Return of the Monarchs. Return of the Monarchs is a great search card because you can't special summon monsters from the X deck, and when you tribute summon a monster, you can activate one of these effects to add a monster from your deck to your hand that has 2400 and 1000 defense with a different name from the monster you just tribute summon, or add from your deck to your hand 1 monster with 2800 attack and 1000 hits with a different name from the tribute summon monster, which is a really good effect just to give you all those searches with this card. This card is a definite 1-of in the build. I did consider playing it as a 2-of, but I did cut it down to 1 for some other cards like Called by the Grave. We then play 3 copies of Pantheism. Pantheism is an insanely powerful draw card in this deck because you send a Monarch spell trap from your hand to the graveyard and then draw 2 cards. You can banish this card from your graveyard to reveal 3 Monarch spells or traps from your deck, and then your opponent randomly chooses 1 and add it to your hand and shovel the rest back in the deck. And you can only use this effect of this card once per turn, but you can use the send a spell or trap card from your hand to the graveyard to draw 2 cards as many times as you want, which is really, really good on this card. We then play 3 copies of Tenacity of the Monarchs. Tenacity is a really good 3-of in the deck because you basically just use this card with your Pantheism to get the exact card that you want, because it has the ability to reveal a monster in your hand with 2400 attack and 1000 defense, or 2800 attack and 1000 defense to add a Monarch spell or trap from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card. So basically you can just reveal 2 copies of this and say a copy of Return to get the exact card that you want off your copy of your Pantheism, which is really, really good. But this card is really good to see in your hand because it gets you the exact card you need when you need it. We then play 3 copies of the Monarch Stormforth. This card is really good because it lets you tribute your opponent's monsters to be able to summon out your monsters from your hand, which is really, really good. So this card is a definite 3-of in this build. We then play 3 copies of the Domain of the True Monarchs. Domain is an insanely powerful field spell, especially during the EX0, because this card comes in extremely handy to be able to put on your side of the field, because we have no cards in your X deck, and you are the only player who controls a tribute summon monster. Your opponent cannot special summon monsters from the X deck, but nobody's going to be playing an X deck during the EX0 festival, because that's the entire point of the EX0 festival. But this card has some really good other effects that if a tribute summon monster you control attacks an opponent's monster, it gains 800 attack during the damage calculation only, and then once per turn you can reduce the level of 1 monster with 2800 attack and 1000 defense in your hand by 2 until the end phase of turn, essentially making it so that you can summon out your copy of the Underworld and Heavenly Monarchs for 1 tribute, which is really, really good. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of the Monarch's Erupt because during the festival this card has actually been put to 1, but this card is still really good because you can activate this card only if you control no cards in your X deck and you control a Tribute Summon monster. You negate the effects of all face-up monsters on the field except for Tribute Summon monsters, and during the end phase, if you control no Tribute Summon monsters, send this card to the graveyard. This card is a great one of in this deck because it's super easy to use this card to be able to lock down the opponent and have a skill drain for monsters that are not Tribute Summon. So this card is a really good one of in this build. We're then playing 2 copies of the Prime Monarch. The Prime Monarch is a really good card to send to the graveyard off your copies of Erebus and Ether, but this card has the ability that once per turn, you can target 2 Monarch spells or trap cards in your graveyard and shuffle them into the deck, and then draw a card. And if this card's in the graveyard, then you can banish 1 other Monarch spell or trap card in your graveyard and then special summon this card in defense position as a normal monster that's a fairy, light, level 5, 1000 attack, 20 of 400 defense, and it is not treated as a trap card while it's on the field by this effect, which is pretty good because they can't pop it with cards like MST. But this card is really good to give you an additional monster to use as a tribute material to summon out your other Monarch monsters, which is really nice. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. This deck is super fun to be able to play, especially during the EX0 festival on Master Duel, but this deck is just really good and just an overall fun deck to play. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell and there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely let me know down in the comments down below what you're playing during the EX0 festival, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.